Sold at 560.
785 the first, 785 the second, be sure, 785 the third, final time, sold. The third and final time at £910,000, sold.
Welcome to this version of the Allsop Prop Chat. This is designed to cover the December the 8th commercial auction. My name's George Walker, auctioneer at Allsops. I'm joined this morning by my handsome colleagues Ben, Hodge and Will Clough, and we're all in London. We've had some lovely feedback to our podcasts. Will got an instruction last auction from someone who just listened to it, and we've got a specific feedback from Paul, who emailed us to say, please be a bit more specific. When you mention a town, please mention the lot number. When you mention a lot number, please mention the town. So thank you for that, Paul. Any more feedback to podcasts@allsop.co.uk. We'd particularly like you to help form and be part of our annual review, which we'll do after Christmas. We'll write it now, but we'll call it after Christmas. What was your highlight of 2021? That's for the historics amongst us, but also looking ahead in 2022, what would you like to buy? Because that's interesting and that helps us. And I think everyone else who's party to the podcast will be interested in other views. So podcasts@allsop.co.uk. So we've had a really busy ride into the festive season. Again, more thanks to our clients from North London who sent us the customary box of donuts to celebrate Hanukkah. All very welcome and very much enjoyed by the entire team, although eating 64 donuts before the guest sale is quite a challenge, but thank you for that. So to sum up the December sale, it was a very busy day. We kind of felt that it got off to a slow start. The buying world has worked out how easy our system is to use at the very last minute. So we had an enormous number, something like 20% of the bidders registered within the last 24 hours. So we can do it. It's hard work. If you can do it earlier, please do, but it does work. So £61 million sold now to date, 119 lots sold from that auction, which brings us to nearly 600 million for the year. It's been a year when we sold quite a lot of big lots. This auction was no exception. The biggest lot sold was quite a pleasure actually, a multi-let industrial, which as we know is a hot sector. We had an instruction from the folks that built this estate in Stockton. That's lot 66, Paul. And the sale was closed just before the auction day, just over 4.3 million. So it's quite a nice big lot. It's something like just short of 25% of the lots this year have been in £1 million lot sizes, which is £309 million this year in bigger lot sizes, showing just the breadth of reach of the auction sort of mailing list. So thank you for that. Been tremendous. I'm in danger of wittering on, so I'll hand you to cover some of the more specifics. The first thing we're going to pick up, Will, is Ben, is just how many bidders we had.
So for our auction, so it was a busy auction. This auction we had over 350 fully registered and paid up bidders that were active on the day and they were bidding. Now this is quite a big figure and it's a big leap on some of our more recent auctions. And in fact, it's more than 100 more registered bidders than we saw in September.
And September was a sort of, in terms of lots sold, quite similar.
On the day, it was very similar in terms of lots sold. We were offering 116 lots, whereas in December it was 180. So it's quite comparable in lot sizes. And as I say, we've seen over 100 more people register for the December sale than September.
And so that's individual bidders as opposed to, and they'll be bidding on several lots.
Exactly.
I think with the everyone now online, you can talk about hundreds of thousands of bids and clicks and watches and everything else. But actually, these are people that are paid up, ready to push the button. Is that right?
These are people that paid up £10,000 for the benefit of those that don't know. It's £10,000 to bid. They've not only paid up, they're
fully refundable if you're unsuccessful.
Of course, but they're paid up and they've actually pressed the button.
Good stuff. And as a result, some of those smaller lots, it was quite a long tail of small lots this auction. It did keep us, it kept going to about 7 o'clock. So it was a long day because there was so much competition. Interesting, I was talking to the residential team today, who've just opened their registration for the auction next week. And one of the fellows I spoke to said, "You must have had a good sale." I said, "How do you know that?" Because the last three people I've spoken to said they tried to buy some in the commercial auction on Tuesday or Wednesday, but actually were outbid. So that's quite nice feedback. Never had that before. That's good. Well, retail market, we've been talking about it. It's a lot of what we sell. Another sort of landmark day, really.
I think so. A full range of lot sizes and generally strong competition across the board. And greater than 80% of the lots sold in terms of the volume of lots as opposed to the value was retail once again.
Yeah, so when we did that Priview presentation 10 days ago, we said that last year was 68%.
Oh, 58%, I think.
58, yeah.
Not unsurprising given last year, but that's crept back up to the normal levels.
It's
Always
knocking around
was
80%.
75 to 80%, and we're back at those numbers, and shows once again the private investor is content, understands it, and happy to buy into retail.
Yeah.
And I'll just pick out a couple of examples. At the larger end, Chris was dealing with a couple, one in Exeter and one in Canterbury. And I think the best way to look at these is really that the price has been adjusted to reflect the huge discounts in market rents that are out there in these former, still great locations, but where people are a little bit cautious on rents. And clearly they've come down in terms of market rent.
So what we're saying is, while the rent is passing at 100, we probably think it'll be renewed.
And a lot higher, yeah.
Will be renewed at less than 100.
Correct.
It may be 70, maybe 80.
And Exeter was lot 58, Blacks Outdoor, trading with Millets, everyone will know, white stuff. Reversion's not a million miles away, 2025, 2024. And it was guided at 2.2 million. And it was one that we were doing with the private treaty team, selling for a fund.
Another Lottie Hayward special.
Yeah, you might recognise her from one of the previous podcasts. Chris and her have been working closely on a few things. And that had 7 bidders on it. It actually went to bids before the auction, guided at 2.2, 7 bids, and sold prior ahead of £2.5 million.
It's got an upside.
Exactly. Mark Gow and Alex Butler did another collaboration together with
Gerrard's
extended
Cross,
marketing. Gerrard's Cross, an office there that sold prior for a good price.
And that wasn't retail. That was a very attractive looking office.
Yeah, that was, and I would be able to tell you.
Apologies, Paul.
Yeah, we'll listen to feedback here.
It was lot 21.
21. So again, that's a collaboration with the private treaty.
And one in Canterbury, cracking location. It was super dry until 2025. A guide of 1.1 million. Again, perception it's over rented. So the guide looked attractive on a yield basis, but this really is drawing in buyers. 7 bidders registered on the day, and that drove it to over £1.5 million. So 10% on a net yield, but that drive on the rent there, working back from the market, is off that. And that's the third one in Canterbury we've done in 3 auctions.
Yeah, it goes back to September. I mean, to give people some context, I mean, to have 7 registered bidders is really pretty meaningful. So in this auction, it's something like 3.5 per lot
for big retail as well.
For big retail, so this is bouncing back.
And I think if this was last year, we wouldn't see those numbers.
It's very different, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And Hodge, you've got a few more.
Well, talking about lots with a lot of bidders.
Christmas, I feel a Christmas take coming on here, Hodge.
Well, we all like a festive bake. Lot 51 in Sutton. It was a Greggs. It had a maisonette above. This is sort of perfect for the private investor. They want diversified income, smaller, more manageable lot sizes, that sort of thing. And that's exactly what they got with this. We had 9 registered bidders bidding against each other. And it ended up selling for £712,000, which, if you're interested in years, is about 5.3%. Greggs didn't have very long left on the lease. They only had till 2023, but they've been in occupation since 1998. So over 20 years. I think people were probably thinking if they're happy to stay, they're likely to see past it.
If you're buying a Greggs next door to where Ben Hodge lives, pay handsomely for it.
I'd suggest Sutton's probably quite a strong trading location for the Greggs.
But interestingly, so that we sort of bidding through the break. I mean, this is looking at this is a decent spot. It's a great tenant. We don't think the market clear isn't going to go, and people look beyond. We get tied up sometimes, and we'll refer to we're talking double-digit yields. We're quoting in the Canterbury's next to us because the income's short. But where the market believes the real estate, believes the location, people will pay for that real estate value.
Yeah, but also, as I say, with this diversified, multi-let stuff. So, it was a shop with a flat.
So 2 income streams.
So you got potentially 2 income streams. You got some options there. We also saw that with lot 3 Leopold Road.
Before we move on from Greggs, I would just say in the online world we live, Tom's lovely client, Thomas Greggs and Sutton, has finally got a mobile phone. So she doesn't do emails. She does typewriters and stamped envelopes, and she's delighted to say she's now got a mobile phone, which is making her life a lot easier. Anyway, moving on to Windsor, I think, number 6 with that.
Well, Windsor is a bit of a story of high street being, some high street demand here. Lot 6, that is, in Windsor. It was a crew clothing shop, ground and first floor, so fully let, on a new 5-year lease. We believe the rent was quite sensible. We believe it was rat rented. And it showed the strength of demand. 93 bids were placed on this one.
But again,
93.
Doug will tell you, Doug's a local. This is a
absolute cracking pitch.
Yeah, so this was pitched at just under £1 million. Again, perfect sweet spot for the private investor. And it sold, it ended up after those 93 bids at 1.21 million, which is a sub 6% yield for high street retail. So, anyone that says the high street's dead, they're mad. It's not.
But it's selective, let's not pretend. That's between Waterstones and Holden and Barrett, within sight of Windsor Castle. There's a lot of money around there. It's a good spot. And the rent's right. And interestingly, some of the old timers who did seem to be more apparent this auction said, George, what have I got to pay to buy Windsor? They felt it was a money box. Now, looking at some of the longer income type of yields we've achieved, we've always talked quite a lot about convenience stores, and there's a lot of money creeping into the market of convenience stores. I'll just cover that briefly. A Co-op store, Lot 27 in Aldridge, just outside Birmingham. So really interesting. It was a lot size of 800,000. There's a fund selling it. So 7 years left on the lease is not what we normally see, which is 15 with a 10-year break. The fund's mandate won't let them hold it. It's getting a bit short. And we had tremendous, I think, 16 bidders for this, because, again, it's a sweet spot. No split income. It was purely the C-store or Co-op. But there was an unexploited first floor, which is something else we've banged on about. Was it a pub?
I don't know.
It looks like a pub, doesn't it?
It was a pub historically, but you can see that in the pictures, Lot 27. The first floor is yet to be done in the future. But also, Will, as you said earlier, it's a big side.
So fantastic parking.
Yeah, great parking. And there's a very big scheme being done by our developments around the corner, which we feel has probably added a bit to the footfalls. So that was about 5%, 1.15 million. The bursar from the Oxford College, I believe, was watching it as it went through and had a minor celebration when the hammer came down. I looked at one. I've been on the road this auction, shock horror. The first lot of the morning was Lot 1 in Cheltenham, a very interesting little Gloucestershire piece. The key here was that it was let 2032 to 2037, I apologise, to Bupa with 5-year RPI increases. So in July next year, there's another increase coming in with inflation running at 5%. Clearly, it won't be a 5% per year increase because the RPI is indexed over the 5-year period. Have a look at that, actually. Office of National Statistics website if you're interested to see how they work. But the point is, next July, as a mechanic, there is a very fixed formula for increasing the rent from the rent passing, which was a gross figure of 30,000 netted down to 25.2 because of the repairing clause. Anyway, that was tremendous demand. I think there were 6 people on that, and it went at 447,000, which is 5.4% on the net basis. Quite a nice one to have. It's an office building by Retirement Village, just inside the ring road. So it probably won't make residential in the longer term, but in and around there's a film studio, there's retirement homes, and at the moment it's being used as administrative centre for the Retirement Village. So it's a nice piece. It's a bit of a lock away. Simple income, but an absolute belting covenant, and 6 bidders were chasing it. So, Ben, we were going to talk about the breakup of Mitcham, I think, now.
Yeah, one of the successes of the auction this week was in Mitcham. It was the breakup of a parade of 23 ground floor only shops.
It was no oil painting.
No, but what happened was this whole parade. We separated it and offered it as 17 separate lots. So these were much more manageable lot sizes for people rather than a large chunk. We thought it was a big chunk, probably around £3 million. Now we broke it up and offered it.
So if we offered it as one, we thought.
Yeah. So if we broke it up, 17 lots, all 17 sold, and total raised actually was 3.5 million. And what it really did is it was a good example of how we can use the auction process to break up large parcels of land into smaller pieces, effectively wholesale to retail, to maximise the realisation for the client.
And also gives the tenants an opportunity to buy their individual units if they want to.
2 tenants in the space of 3 weeks actually went from zero to exchange. I think full exchange on the day of the sale. Some overseas action there. I think one of our overseas buyers got
a few of those.
Got more than half of the ones sold. So he was quite aggressive on those. He happened to have some cash in the bank at the time and felt Mitcham's a good location. And the yields, it's sort of between 6.5% and 8.5%.
What was it? Between 6.2 and 9.1, yeah.
And off the back of that, Philip Parsons has sailed off to the Caribbean and is now lying on a beach.
Let's not go there. But Phil, if you're listening to this from Barbados, I hope you have a great time.
Shall we talk about something alternative?
Well, something alternative.
God, I knew you'd say
not just your shirt.
I'm not going to live this down. We've talked about alternatives quite often. I don't know really if this is alternative or not, but lot 29 in Colchester.
Or not in Colchester.
Or not in Colchester, but near Colchester, is a site on the side of the A12. And from the picture, it looks like it's where the salt spreaders live. It's let to National Highways, formerly Highways England. And it's a long lease. They've been there for 20 years. The expiry on that one is out in 2047. But there are rolling breaks, but that's linked to the contracts that National Highways have to maintain the roads. And effectively, it's used to maintain the A12. So if you're driving home for Christmas, you can thank these guys for getting you back there safely if the snow starts to fall.
With a bit of Chris Rea on the radio.
Exactly. There were 67 bids on this one, and it drove it on from 1.25 million, off a rent passing of 80,000, 1.25, up to 1.675 million.
So I think that's like £700,000 an acre, which is probably, parity for industrial land in this part of the world.
4.5%. It is fundamental to the operation of the A12. People are, as George mentioned there, bidding through the break.
What sort of buyer would this appeal to?
I think it's a huge range of buyers. You would probably have all the detail as to exactly who was registered on that.
I had some real old timers. I mentioned old timers. I don't mean old people, but people I've known for the 25 years I've been doing this. One is a North London Propco. It's a family office. It's probably £1 billion portfolio. He called me from the site. I mean, he specialises in London, and he just went because he's got some money. He was looking at this because it's a lock. We mentioned Lockaway. This is a buy it, collect the rent.
And it's predominantly a site. There are one or two sheds on there, and there's a schedule of condition. So it's not really a industrial investment per se or motor trade. It's a bit of everything.
Yeah, and 4.5% is pretty tight. Was there a review basis in it? Well, it's just open market, I think.
So it's every 5th year.
Yeah. So there's no mechanic that I mentioned before, but it's just bankable income. So there's a lot of money for this sort of thing in the market.
And they've been there for 20 years. This is a reversionary lease they've entered into.
And you can't really categorise it. We sometimes like to pigeonhole our investments. This is possibly an industrial. But really, an example, we've looked at education sectors, we looked at nurseries, something not mainstream. You can't buy salt gritting for the A12 online. It's rock solid.
That's awful.
It's awful. Sorry.
No, awful joke.
But it's right.
It wasn't supposed to be. Right, so let's wrap up quickly on this. Thanks for your attention. I think we felt the December auction was quite hard from auctioneers' perspective. We're going to record what happens on the auction day. In the February auction to give our listeners some feeling of what happens, because it's not just sitting there. There's a lot of activity. But it was because we had 100 more bidders to process, and it worked a treat, as you can see, £61 million raise. So thank you to you if you've bought for us this year. Thank you again if you sold for us through us. It's been a really interesting year to reach that market. We're never been closer to our market. We're very aware that when the button goes live, a lot of people are absolutely ready and they work all weekend trying to get the ducks in line to buy lots, because it's normally 2.5 weeks. And this wouldn't happen without our support team. We've had Charlotte on the show before. We've had Sabine, and we'll have more special guests next year. So thank you for buyers. Thank you for our sellers, our clients, and also the support team around us, which is many and varied. And there's probably about 40 people support every auction we do. The next edition of the pod will be in January, when we'll be looking at the annual review, which we're all going to work on in the next 10 days. We would like you to be involved in that if you can. So there's a couple of questions to our email address, podcasts with an S on the end, podcast@allsop.co.uk. So first one, what was your highlight of 2021 in one line? And secondly, what would you like to buy in 2022? Because there'll be some different views here. We can't promise a gritting base in Essex every auction, but what would you like? What sector would you like? What sort of lot size takes your fancy?
I'll just chip in there. My dream for 22, just to give everyone a flavour.
Finish your house.
No. I would like to have a portfolio of Greggs. I think it'd be great. Let's get 13 of them. We'll label it the Baker's Dozen.
Baker's Dozen.
And we'll offer it.
Ben's fascination. Well, Ben, thank you for your invaluable contribution. Will, thank you for joining in. I hope thank you for your attention, and have a great Christmas break, and we'll look forward to catching up again in January 22.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, all.
Merry Christmas indeed.